There's a Bible verse I think about sometimes. Many times. It goes, and I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? Go for us.
Ideas like a virus. A virus. Silly.
I said, here am I. Send me. Send me.
Welcome back. Hopefully you're still here. We are in a discussion on the book of Job. This tough wisdom literature does not go down easy, and it's not supposed to. In the last episode, we focused on the Satan figure and his role in the suffering allowed here on Battlefield Earth. I got stuck on that topic, which I knew I would. I don't make any apologies for it. I love that concept. Where we last left Job, he was enduring some painful testing. Testing that you wouldn't wish upon your worst enemy. And the rub of the beginning of the tale is that God allowed it. And what do we do with that information? How do we respond in times of test? First, we pray to not go through it, right? Like Jesus taught his disciples, lead me not into times of test, but if you do, deliver me, save me from evil. Now we move on to see how Job's community responds. We saw what his wife had to say, right? That didn't go so well. We got that one crystal clear. Now we move on to the advice from his friends, and it ain't great either. You have gotten advice from a friend in tough times that wasn't great, so we will be able to relate with Job very well here in this. And I try to conclude the saga of this episode, if I can in this one, where we finally get Job some answers from Yahweh. And that doesn't go great either, okay? That's the full tension of this book. It will push you if you let it take you there. So without further ado, let's get into it. Job 2 continues after we just left Job sitting in agony, covered in boils with his family members dead, most of his property gone. The text says, quote, now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that had come upon him, they each came from his own place, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamite. They made an appointment together to come to show their sympathy and to comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him. And they raised their voices and wept, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads towards the heavens. And they sat with him on the ground for 7 days and 7 nights. And no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. End quote. Now, it never says that any of the characters in this tale are Israelites. Some scholars go out of their way to harp on that. At this wisdom literature. But this is a very Jewish thing that they're doing here. It's like sitting Shiva, okay? It's a mourning posture of the Jewish people. Something we could learn as Jesus followers, the Jewish people know how to mourn. They don't move on too quickly and act like everything is fine. They sit in it and they let it wash over them. That is what's going on here. They sit and just sit with their friend. No advice, not yet anyway, no lessons. Just sit and be with Job. Comfort him, and you do not speak. You wait for him to speak. And it said they sat there for 7 days and 7 nights with their buddy. That's what they did. So they're doing good right now. Then Job speaks, finally. And what he says is a very human response. Job 3 is the equivalent of saying, today I wish I was never born. He says, quote, let the day perish on which I was born. And the night that said a man is conceived, let that day be darkness. May God above not see it, nor shine a light upon it. Let gloom and darkness claim it. Let clouds dwell over it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. I'll stop there. He goes on and on and on about the day he was born. Just wipe it out. Get rid of it. He's having a well-deserved pity party. And who can blame the guy with what he's gone through, man? Now the friends reply. First up is Eliphaz. I'm going to save you some time and sum up all these friends' talks because these guys are incredibly long-winded, man. Chapter after chapter of accusations from the friends and Job's reply. Basically what Eliphaz wants Job to know is that it is his fault. It has to be. He must have done something, so confess, Job. And again, we as the reader, we've got the inside information. That ain't true. And it makes reading these friends' assumptions so frustrating. Eliphaz says in a nutshell that the intense suffering of Job is a direct punishment from God. From either a secret sin that he better confess. He presents himself as a comforter, but he's not. All he does is accuse Job of being stupid, being cruel, or poor in spirit, or all the above. And all he has to do is repent, and then this will stop. His argument is that only the wicked suffer, and therefore Job must have done something to deserve these terrible things. Once he is done with his annoyingly long rant, Job replies and defends himself. He says back to Eliphaz that his assumption is incorrect. He wholeheartedly rejects his friend's flawed theory and says that he hasn't done anything. But God has definitely abandoned him, is what Job says. He calls Eliphaz an unreliable stream. He calls him cruel and empty and rude, which is all correct. Job feels like a target. And then Bildad goes next. He further turns the knife and he says that Job's suffering is a direct result of sin, making an argument that a just God would never punish a righteous man to this extent. And if it isn't the sin of Job that probably did it, it might be his family. And they died because of their transgressions as well. He urges him to repent. Thanks, Bildad. Job replies. He states that his friend is wrong. He defiantly defends his innocence. He protests these accusations. He's angry and wants Bildad and the others to know that this isn't linked to any specific sin, and that Job is appealing to the justice of God and not his friend's simplistic wisdom, Job says. Zophar comes next. He ups the ante and basically says that Job probably deserves worse than what he got. Thanks, Zophar. He comes at Job, and it's incredibly harsh. He says that he is full of empty words. He makes the plea that he is defending the justice of God and that Job is wrong, and he probably got off easy. That's what that guy says to him. Job again pushes back. He points out that his friends and all their logic of the wicked are always punished with examples of people he knows that are very wicked and have lived long and happy lives. And I think we today have seen people that are definitely not living according to God's will or the teachings of Jesus. They're doing just fine. No problems. As Billy Joel taught us, only the good die young, right? This goes on for 27 chapters in this book. This might be why you haven't read Job. It's 27 chapters where you're eventually like, these guys, I can't take this anymore. Accusation and response. If you're reading this book as a play or a movie script, the author has pulled the rubber band back about as far as he can pull it back before you're about to give up. And then we get to the juicy center, chapter 28. Chapter 28 is a chiasm. The Bible is filled with chiasms. This is a great one. I've said before, a chiasm in the Bible is where we have a build up to the center with maybe specific words or concepts or themes, and they hit in the middle, and then they're repeated in reverse order. Like this, like A, B, C, D, D, C, B, A. That's a chiasm. Does that make sense? And the middle is always the crucial point to pay attention to. And I want to give this a little honor before moving forward. So the middle of the book of Job is chapter 28, okay? And I just said it goes through all of the suffering, and then Job speaks. And it's a beautiful poem. Surely there is a mine for silver, and a place where they refine gold. Iron is taken out of the earth, and copper is smelted from stone ore. Man puts an end to darkness, and to the farthest bounds he searches out. The rock buried in gloom and deep shadow, he breaks open mine shafts, far away from where people live, in places forgotten by the human foot. They dangle in the mines and hang away from the man. But underneath, it's turned over as fire. Its stones are the beds of sapphire. It holds dust of gold, the path no bird prays, and the falcon's eyes have not caught sight of. The proud beasts have not walked on it, nor has a fierce lion passed over it. Man puts his hand on the flinty rock. He overturns the mountain base. He cuts out channels. So it's saying, do you see all the beautiful things men have done? It's talking about mining for gold, emerald, jewels. It's like, man is so fascinating how they're able to do this. And then it goes on to say, but where can wisdom be found? And where is the place of understanding? Man does not know it, nor is it found in the land of the living. The deep say, it's not mine, it's not me. And the sea says, it's not with me. It cannot be obtained for pure gold, nor pure silver. It cannot be valued in the gold of Ophir, in the precious onyx or beryl or sapphire. Nor can it be exchanged for articles of fine gold, no mention of coral or crystal, for the possession of wisdom is even above rubies and pearls. It goes on and on. It's just a beautiful poem in the middle of this crazy book of suffering. And it's Job speaking. And Job is a chiasm upon chiasm, and that is a big one. The theme of this book is suffering. How do we process suffering? And then at the middle is this gorgeous poem on wisdom. And where does wisdom come from? Mankind has done amazing things, amazing accomplishments. The examples in this are mining for the ancient people, but take that into today. Air travel, microchips, modern medicine, light bulb, air conditioner, can't forget that one. All these things and what mankind always seems to struggle with, perspective. Our place in the stars. Does man have wisdom? It says here that we do not. With all that we've accomplished, we are yet to attain wisdom, true wisdom, cosmic wisdom. Only God has that and knows where it comes from. It said even the depth was like, we've heard about it. The sea was like, we heard, but we don't know. And so why does that lie in the middle of this book of suffering? Why is there so much suffering in the world? Job has an idea for why. His wife has an idea for why. His friends have another idea for why. And then another friend is about to come along that you haven't met yet. He's got another idea of where wisdom comes from. They're all wrong. They all miss the mark. The whole book on suffering, and the center is this chapter on wisdom, the one thing we truly lack. The whole point of chapter 28 is to lay down the law that only Yahweh can attain wisdom. It can only come from a divine perspective. As I have spoiled already, Job does not end with a bow on it. There's a semi-happy ending, yes, but his family members are still dead. There's no happily ever after. 40 chapters and no resolution. God does throttle Job, but you want at the end of the tirade for God to let Job in on the backstory that you and I as the reader know. He never tells him. God doesn't he doesn't tell him the bet that he made. And something that we don't understand, God doesn't owe that to Job after he put him through all of this. In my opinion, I think he does, but he doesn't get it. And that's because that's how life is, man. That's how it goes down here sometimes. You have suffered. I have suffered. Job has suffered. And sometimes we don't fully understand the reasoning why until years later, and sometimes we never get the answer. Maybe we get on the other side of eternity, but in this life, man, God believed in Job so much. He was so impressed with his loyal love, and what was his reward? Suffering. God calls over Satan to brag on him. Satan, get over here, man. Have you seen this guy? Have you seen Job? He's the best. And they make a wager of sorts on him. And according to you and I, does that make any sense? Is that a wise decision by the Creator God? And the point of the poem is to nail home the fact that we have no idea what the full story is of our lives or the lives of others. How would this book have been different if Job knew about what was going on in the heavenly realm? What if he knew what the stakes were? What if he knew that God was so impressed with him that he knew he could do this? He knew he would persevere and that Yahweh was cheering him on, rooting for him. What if he knew that? That's the tension. Difficult teaching here. The book of Job is inviting us to that perspective, a cosmic perspective for you to ponder. What if the reasoning for some of your suffering and mine was for a purpose that we couldn't possibly understand? But the purpose was good, for the greater good of the eternal plan, even suggesting that God can see things that we can't possibly understand, and we were never meant to. But we are invited to trust in Him and His rescue plan, to trust the story. Wisdom, where does wisdom come from? Only death and destruction have heard a rumor of it. They've heard of it, but they don't know. But God looks at wisdom and appraises it, is what it says. Moving right along. I'm not done with you guys yet. Sorry, story ain't over yet. After all this, the friends coming and giving terrible advice, Job replying and laying out this beautiful poem where wisdom comes from, a new character is introduced in chapter 32. He just shows up. His name is Elihu. He pops up out of nowhere. He's never introduced, and he just goes. He's also upset. He is upset with the friends, and he's also upset with Job and Job's replies. He states that his friends have all these accusations of Job, but they lack one thing: evidence. They have no evidence to throw at Job. So he speaks up. And if you went back and read how long the previous friends went on, this guy takes the cake. It's chapter 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, and 37 is all Elihu. Just rambling on, man. So I will not be reading that. I will spare you. But to summarize, his view is simply this. Maybe God is testing Job preeminently to prepare him. This is his nuance. Maybe God in His justice will give a man a trial ahead of time to shape their character, to prepare them for a more difficult battle later. So when the rubber meets the road in the future, the image bearer is battle hardened and prepared, and their hand will not shake, not after what they've been through. That could be something there. Go on, Elihu. I'm tracking. But he also wants Job to know that he is also wrong in his pushback, that God is not fair to him, accusing God of being cruel in causing his suffering. He is saying it's not that, Job. It's discipline. It's character building. Your self-loathing is doing you no good. So this piggybacks right out of the chiasm in the chapter 28. The one contrast here is that Elihu's point is that there is always a reason to suffering. You might not just be able to know it yet. What chapter 28 pushes back on is that we will never know what the reasoning is sometimes. We are viewing it from the standpoint of a human perspective. And only God will ever know what his thoughts were and why it was wise for things to work out the way they did. It's not accessible to us. It's not for us to know. And then after Elihu's rant, Job finally gets his wish. God shows up. God has some words for Job. Starting in chapter 38, God shows up to answer Job's words against him. And how does he show up? In a storm, a whirlwind, a heaven tornado, just like our boy Elijah got to see. But the tone is a little more upset father here. God starts his dialogue like this. Who is this that darkens my counsel without having any knowledge? Get ready, Job. I have questions for you. You want to talk? Let's talk. I riffed a little there, but just now Job has some big claims against God and his justice, and God is here to tell him about it, okay? He has some examples for Job, and it starts with a tour of the universe. God takes Job all through the things he's been working on since the beginning of time. He asks Job, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Were you there? And who shut up the seas behind the doors? Who tells the oceans to come this far and stop? Is that you, Job? Were you there for the oceans? He goes on and on. He explains how lightning comes when I call it. Do you do that, Job? Then he goes into the day-to-day operations of the entire world. Are you there, Job, to provide the raven with its food? Do you satisfy the appetites of lions, Job? Do you know where the mountain goat is supposed to give birth? Or the wild ox? Or the ostrich? Or the wild donkey? Do you give the horse its strength? Is it you who tells the hawk to spread its wings and go south? Does the eagle soar at your command? I don't think so. What is the point of all these questions for Job? I mean, they're obviously rhetorical. God is saying here, like he could say to all of us when we question the way of life and the way things are going. Because what is our favorite subject? Ourselves. It's a sales trick salespeople use. Get the client or the prospect to talk about themselves or their kids or their accomplishments because that's our favorite subject. Ourselves, our story, our lot in life. The breaks that work out for us, the way we planned. And here's a little reminder that God has for Job. Everything and anything is under my control. There is nothing that gets away from me, Job. Nothing is out of my sight, my knowledge or my commands. I know every detail. From the snail fish that lives at the bottom of the Mariana Trench under so much water pressure that it makes no sense that it can live. I am in control of that. To the highest flights of a griffin vulture that can get up to 37,000 feet, I'm there also. Nothing is outside of my order, and here are you, Job, questioning my ways. How dare you? There's a Babylon Bee article that's hilarious. John from Bible Project brought this up in one of their episodes on this topic. Babylon Bee is like The Onion. The Onion does this for politics. Babylon Bee sometimes does it for Christian humor. It's satire. And it's one that I found on the concept of God, laying it out here. The title of the article is, What Has God Ever Done for Me? Sources confirmed Tuesday that local freethinker Jarrett Olson called into question the absurd idea that God has ever done anything for him, all while inhaling oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide in a complex process well beyond his mind's capability of understanding in its entirety. The idea of God is really holding us back, Olson continued, addressing this to other members of his philosophy club, as the membranes across his larynx vibrated to modulate the flow of air from his lungs, making his speech audible to the people listening, whose intricate ear structures then instantaneously transformed the invisible sound waves into abstract thought into his brain's nervous tissue. I love that, dude. Exactly. Whatever you are thinking, when you sit down and try and really figure out the universe and why and how things operate, that's how you sound. And that's how I sound. God even talks about this in chapter 38. It's around verse 25 or so. He talks about who brings rain on the land where there is no man. On a desert I make it rain, to satisfy the waste and desolate land and make the ground sprout with grass. He's saying, I'm thinking about places in the world that no human's ever going to experience, and I make it rain there. And I make the grass go, just for the sake of making something beautiful. And you'll never experience it. No man ever will. But I just want my creation to be beautiful, because that's what I do. But what does that, Dude, what do you say to that? I mean, got me. Job doesn't have an answer either, okay? Whenever he is allowed to speak, he has these short little sentences in between all these rants that God is ripping off, and he's like, I shouldn't have said anything. You are right. I am nothing. I am vapor. Job says, I lay my hand over my mouth. I spoke once. I will not answer twice. I will proceed no further. I am just going to keep my mouth shut and keep listening to whatever you have to teach me. And God keeps pouring it on. He pours it on in chapter 40. He tells Job that if you're so wise, like I said, you tell me what should happen next. What should go now? How should the universe go from today going forward? Look, every man high and low, and then I will admit to you that your hand brings justice. So he's like, go ahead, you tell me, Job. If you do, I'll bow down to you, and you take the reins. You can run creation for a while. Job, of course, says nothing. These questions are rhetorical if you haven't got the gist of that by now. God then goes on to two very beautiful creatures he is very proud of making, in the behemoth and the Leviathan. He describes them to Job. Now, you might have asked a person in your church what these animals are. I've seen them called a hippo, an alligator, I've seen dinosaur. I've heard it all, but you tell me what these creations are. He says to Job, quote, behold behemoth, Job, which I made as I made you. He eats grass like an ox. Behold his strength in his loins, and his power in his muscles of his belly. He makes his tail stiff like a cedar. The sinews of his thigh are knit together. His bones are tubes of bronze. His limbs like bars of iron. He is the first of the works of God. End quote. Does that sound like a hippo to you? Me neither. Okay, what about Leviathan? You know what I think this one is, man. Faithful listeners of the cast. If you listen to the Chaos Dragon episode, this one's right up my alley. And God created it early on. Quote, Job, can you draw out Leviathan with a fish hook or press down his tongue with a cord? Can you put a rope around his neck or pierce his jaw with a hook? Will he make pleas to you? Will he speak to you soft words? Will he make a covenant with you to take him as a servant forever? Who can open the doors of his face? Around his teeth is terror. His back is made of rows of shields, shut up closely as a seal. They are joined together, one to another. They clasp each other and cannot be separated. His sneezes flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the dawn. Out of his mouth go flaming torches of fire to leap forth. Out of his nostril comes forth smoke as a boiling pot and burning ashes. His breath kindles coal, and a flame comes from his mouth. End quote. Does that sound like an alligator to you? Me neither. It's a sea monster, dude. It's a dragon. I didn't put it in there. It's in Scripture. You deal with it, okay? Behemoth, you can maybe put it around something you know, but the Leviathan, man, at least as far as the biblical authors are concerned, the ancients are viewing this as, this is a known creature. Psalm 74, Leviathan is a seven-headed beast, pointing back to the void of Genesis 1 and 2. It's a chaos creature. So what is God saying to Job here? I tame even the chaos amongst the cosmos. Along with all the day-to-day manicuring of the entire known world that you're familiar with, I am also working a plan for the order of the entire cosmos. Once again, nothing is outside of my concern, least of all you, my son. Job, look at Behemoth. I made this creature just like I made you. Job, look at Leviathan. He is terrifying and wild and could probably eat you alive. And I put him in this world. Just because God allows danger doesn't mean he is evil or that he's playing games with you. Dude, this world is raw and wild, but make no mistake, he is saying, I am fully in control, even over the parts that appear to be completely random or have no fairness or they're wrong in your eyes. That's the end of the speech from God. That's the last thing he says. He's done talking. He never tells Job about his discussion with the Satan or how he was bragging on him. He just reestablishes order that says, I am in control. And Job replies to God in chapter 42, ending the book. Job says, I know that you can do all things and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. And he continues on like that. And then in verse 6 is a very hard sentence at the end of his dialogue. He says something to the fact of, I reject, or yours might say, I despise myself. Others say, I reject the things I said. The point is he's taking back his words. He's seeing things anew. The things that he was claiming, he sees now they are flawed. And he repents. He changes. He has a changing of the mind, changing of his heart. He is declaring a new heart, a heart of humility. But that's not the end. Job has one more audience that he wants to talk to, and that's Job's friends. He has some parting words for them before he goes. Yahweh says, quote, after the Lord had spoken these words to Job, the Lord said to Eliphaz, my anger burns against you and against your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right. as my servant Job has, which actually gave me pause because God is saying, did you say something right, Job? Because it sounds like he was pretty upset with him earlier. I get that you're off with the friends, that is clear, but what did Job say that was right? He didn't say everything that was right, but he did say a few things right, namely that God doesn't always run the universe out of the principle of just recompense, because Job is innocent, and he knew that, and he suffered, and God allowed it. And God says, that's right. Now therefore take 7 bulls and 7 rams, and go to my servant Job, and offer up burnt offerings for yourselves. And my servant Job will pray for you, and I will accept his prayers, not to deal with you according to your folly, for you have not spoken what is right of me, as my servant Job has. So Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar went and did what the Lord had told them, and the Lord accepted Job's prayer. End quote. Then the happy ending, quoting the very end of the book here. And the Lord restored the fortunes of Job. When he prayed for his friends, the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. Then came to him all his brothers and sisters, all who had known him before, and they ate bread with him in his house, and they showed him sympathy and comforted him from all the raw that God had brought upon him, all the misery, all the hurt. And each of them gave him a piece of money and a ring of gold. And the Lord blessed the later days of Job more than the beginning. And he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. He had 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. And then it says all their names. And in all the land there was no woman as beautiful as Job's daughter. And their father gave them an inheritance amongst their brothers. And after this, Job lived 140 years and saw his sons and his sons' sons and his sons' sons' sons to 4th generation. And Job died an old man, full of days. End quote. That's the end. That's the end of the book. And like I said, this book is full of chiasms. Doesn't that sound eerily similar to the beginning? And maybe you're thinking, well, then what the hell was all that for, man? He gave Job everything back and then some. I thought the whole purpose of Job was to hold his integrity despite these terrible losses. The author is wanting you to see these blessings differently now. Do you see it? Do you feel a little different towards Job now, by now? These rewards are not owed to Job. He didn't earn them with points. It is simply a gift from God to Job. And based on how we see how God runs the universe, he could have given him the blessings or he could have withheld the blessings. But he chooses to bless Job. It's a gift, man. In God's wisdom and generosity, he gives Job abundantly, but not based on his performance, based on God's wisdom. And when the unholy man, the wicked man, treat people like dirt and get more success in this world and more money than you and I will ever see, did they earn that through their faithfulness? No. Do they have to answer for all the ways they treated people poorly, just like Job? Yes. But it is not for you and I. It is not our justice. We are not good at that. We are not good at saying who should be blessed and who should be cursed. It's God. He says, vengeance is mine, and that's for a reason, man. I don't know about you, but sometimes when that wicked man gets what he deserves and more, you feel for him. You feel sorry for him. You almost want the punishment to relent. I mean, what is that? You see, it's like we are so all over the place, man. We can't run this world. So put that bag down. You were never supposed to carry it. Never. So God says, let me work my plan. You don't know the full story. He does. There is a way that I am going to, there's way more going on than you have any idea. You've got to trust me. And you have to have faith. Your prosperity has nothing to do with your salvation or righteousness. It's a gift. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. So when you do get it, be thankful. Drop to your knees and pray how much you appreciate this because it's a gift. So take it. Be modest. Fear the Lord and do the next right thing. Will it work out exactly like you thought it would? Probably not. And that's okay. You're okay. Everything is going to be okay, even when it looks the darkest. I don't know about you, man, but the most growth I have ever done in my entire life came from my lowest and my darkest moments on this planet. I wish against wish that I didn't have to go through them. I hurt so badly. I hurt others so badly. People that didn't deserve the hurt, I caused them. And I wish I could take it back, and I can't. And that's okay. We move forward. So many days I couldn't see a way out. What good could possibly come from this? And yet, man, I look back on those days with great appreciation. It was horrible, but I grew like a weed from them, man. My faith is on a level now it would have never gotten to. If my path was all sunshine and rainbows, I would never have this faith. And I don't want to live those days again, don't get me wrong. But I am grateful for them. I have a perspective now to offer that I never would have had if there wasn't any thorns in my roses. I can relate to others who are in the middle of their battle right now, and I'm on the other side of it. I can encourage them. It ain't over. Don't quit. You can do this. You're stronger than you think. And how thankful I am, man, for those that I leaned on when I was sick and tired. And people held me and they lifted me up and they dragged me across the finish line, showing me a future. That is love, brother. That's love. That is beautiful. And would I have picked those trials for me? Hell no. I hated them. But I love them now. And that's the point. That's the lesson of this fascinating piece of literature, man. I could go on and on. Just keep the faith, work the plan. And when you cross over to that other side of eternity, covered in scars, who's there? Your Father, open arms, saying, well done, good and faithful servant. I'm Tyler Parker. Sunday School is out.